Good morning, everybody. My name is Corey Rosen, and you're listening to the Story Podcast. And today I have on a super awesome guest, Jessica Smucker. Jessica Smucker believes that the best way to change the world is to channel our pain into connection. Her songs have a way of reaching deeply into people's souls and inviting the kind of reflection that feels both reassuring and unsettling. Wrapped in catchy melodies, her lyrics appear simple and relatable on the surface, but with each listen, uncovers more hidden pockets of nuance. She is the kind of writer and performer who can lull a noisy room into a hush with a single line. Jessica is based in Lancaster, PA, very near the tiny rural town of Burdenham, where she grew up. She has toured nationwide, opened for many national acts like Cheryl Wheeler and Bill Staines, and shared billing with Heather Maloney, Meghan Trainor, Gangstagrass, and the Straybirds. She has won or placed in numerous national songwriting contests, including SolarFest Singer-Songwriter Showcase Competition, the Connecticut Folk Festival Song Competition, and the Mid-Atlantic Song Contest. Her discography spans from 2008 to 2020 and includes her 2 EPs and 3 full-length albums and a handful of singles released in 21 and 22. She hopes to release a fourth album sometime next year. In her life beyond music, Jessica is a published poet and essayist, a social justice warrior, freakishly good at Scrabble, and mother to two of the smartest people she's ever met in real life. Jessica, how you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me here.
Of course. So tell me, where did your love for music begin?
That's a very good question. I took piano lessons as a very young child, 5 years old. I liked playing for relaxation, but I didn't really like learning. I mean, I didn't like practicing. I didn't like playing what other people told me to play. Um, I would say that as a little kid and even as a teenager, I would occasionally go to the piano to write something. And I always loved listening to music, but I didn't really ever think of myself as a musician. My passion for music really came from my passion for writing.
Hmm.
So I was always a writer from very very early on, and I wrote in a number of different genres. Through a lot of my 20s, I was writing and publishing poetry and nonfiction. And I would say that when I really turned to music and started thinking of that as my primary genre, my primary passion was when I was just finishing college and thinking about going to grad school, thinking about doing an MFA, and I realized that poetry just had me in my head too much, and I
Hmm.
wasn't writing very. I was overthinking everything. I was really having trouble keeping up with the level of output that I was supposed to be keeping up with, and kind of driving myself crazy with it. And so I noticed that I was turning to the piano more, just for relaxation, just for fun. Um, but I started writing some songs, and over time and very gradually, and the story of how I went from dabbling in that to feeling like okay about being a professional is long, and we don't have to go into that. But that was what did it for me. It was getting burnt out with the other forms of writing and realizing that music and composing music was really a full body experience for me. I felt like when I had my hands on the keys and I was doing something physical with my body, it was easier for the words to come out, and it was like I was carving a place for the words to live, with um, with the physical process of playing the piano. So that was in around my late 20s, and I started my first band when I was 30, and I guess the rest is history.
So I want to talk a little bit about the writing,
Mm.
because you mentioned a lot of musicians aren't usually writers first.
Mhm.
So tell me about that transition. What was it like to transition from poetry, essays to singer songwriting
Mhm.
material, which is arguably poetry too?
Yeah, it is, and yet there has always been very little crossover for me between when I'm writing a poem, it's a completely different process. I have started writing poetry again after, like, a 15-year lull, but, you know, now looking back, because that was about, 16, 17 years ago when I started doing music, now looking back, I wish that I had been able to start it more confidently and realize that, everybody has a different way into music. Some people play music because they're really excellent at the guitar, or they have like really great music theory or rhythm. And some people, are reluctant musicians, but they're writing things that are worth putting out there. So early on, I was very insecure about my musical ability. I was also very lucky because I had a couple of people who heard my songs, a couple of really good musicians who heard my songs and wanted to help me figure out how to arrange them and how to think about myself as a musician. Um, so I eased into it. I had a band before I ever performed solo, and when I started my band, I thought I would never ever ever go out and just play the piano and sing in front of an audience by myself. Like I felt like I really needed those people who were real musicians, to support my work. And I learned a whole lot from that process. But a few years in, I got to the point where I had learned enough that it was like, okay, I think I can, go out and play a set by myself. And but it's different than it is for a lot of people. And I have to sort of think about where are the right rooms for me to play. Um, and where am I going to feel the most comfortable? Because what I do on the piano is very basic. I play to accompany myself. I'm not good in a jam session. I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
I'm good at harmonizing, singing harmonies in a jam session, but I'm not the person you're going to call to play keys in your band. Like I'm going to play it for myself. And I've surrounded myself with some really, really excellent musicians, and that feels on one hand lucky, and on the other hand it's that, like, I feel like I was the last to accept that writing a good song matters as much as, like, knowing the names of the chords you're playing. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's sort of a story of how I came into it.
Sure. So you mentioned how the process for you, writing poetry versus writing music, is completely different brain. Tell me a little bit how does that work
Yeah.
for you?
So I tried early on when I started doing music. I thought, well, maybe I'll turn some of my poems that are already written into musical creations, and it just felt really contrived. It didn't feel right. Some of it is that I think, the creation process for me is really, there's a lot of discovery that's happening. Like I don't, even when I'm writing prose or I'm writing an essay, I don't really sit down and make an outline of, like, this is where I'm starting, this is where I want to go, these are my goals. I
Mm.
I write, I write to discover. And if I know where it's going too soon in the process, I lose interest in it. So
So you through compose almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good way of putting it. So I just feel like, because when I'm writing a song, it's not like I start out with words and put it to a melody. It's I do some starting out with a melody, and then, like, it's not just putting words in it, though. It's like using the melody to kind of like dig for the words.
Hmm.
um, and so it just feels like those two things are really inseparable. When I'm writing a poem, it's hard to explain, but it's just, there's a whole different way that my brain is working, and like a different state of mind that I'm in. And it's rhythmic, but
Not
it's
melodic.
not melodic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
So when did you write your first song, and what was that process like for you?
I mean, I wrote some songs when I was, probably 7 or 8 years old.
Right.
But I remember, maybe the first song that I at the time felt really good about was when I was in high school. I wrote a song about my dad. Um, and I remember that feeling, like a real accomplishment. It was like, oh, this is something that I can do. And from there, I think I wrote more. But in terms of I mean, I remember the first song I wrote that made me think, wow, I could really be a songwriter. It's a song that I still play. Um, I was in college when I wrote it. It's called Same Time Every Year. Um, and it was just, I think there was something about my work as a poet that came into that. It was like I had finally found a way to incorporate some ideas from poetry into a song. It had the lush imagery, but it was also very like my poems in that at the time that it was very packed with words. So
Mhm.
that's something that I've over time. If you listen to my early songs, they tend to be very packed with lyrics. Some of them don't even have choruses. Like it'll have a chorus, a melodic chorus, but it has different words every time because I felt like I had so much to say in a limited space. Um, but so now I've been a lot more sparse and direct with my lyrics lately, which is a fun evolution too.
Yeah, so we have a few of your songs from as of late. Which one do you want to highlight first? Do you think we have "Dinosaur," "Stones to Throw," or "To See"?
Yeah, let's do dinosaurs.
Tell me about dinosaurs.
So dinosaurs was my pandemic song, and I was home, with I had been working from home before the pandemic started, and my husband was also working from home. So there wasn't a whole lot that changed about our situation, except that our kids were home they
All
were
the
home all the time,
time.
right? And so we were just trying to navigate that. We felt very lucky. We felt like we had it better than a lot of people. Um, but it was so I just remember having this moment around the summer of 2020 when it became clear that like this is not just a couple months, like this is a
It's a
long-term
while.
thing. And there was something about it that felt really it felt really apocalyptic to me. And I woke up one morning and I was like, I feel like the world already ended, but like we just don't know it yet.
Mm.
Um, and because I had little kids in the house who were into dinosaurs, it just got me thinking about dinosaurs. And I was thinking, we know a little bit about how the dinosaurs went extinct, but I don't think it's like, the meteor hit and they all died right away. I think it's very possible or likely that there were dinosaurs walking the earth for hundreds or thousands of years afterwards.
Right, we still got birds and crocodiles.
Right, right, right. And so it was like, did those dinosaurs who were walking the earth, 100 years after the death shot was fired on their species, um, did they care that it was? Did they know? Did they care, or are they just people that are living their lives and trying to make the not people are
Right, of course.
are they just dinosaurs who are living their lives and foraging for food and trying to make the best of it? And so that just felt like it applied. It felt
Mm.
like this is a moment where I can be grateful for the time with my family. I can acknowledge that it's difficult. I can acknowledge that like there's something deeply sad about it, but also that there's a love story in there
Mm.
somewhere. So that's where dinosaurs came from.
Let's take a listen to "Dinosaurs" by Jessica Smucker.
I always thought the world would end with blood and bones, but here we are, hunkered down in our home sweet home. I love you more without the crowds drawing me out. which is hard. Everything I see is red. Learning to live my life without a future in my head. I love you more since the clocks all stopped. We've got everything we need to stay alive until we're not. Maybe our hope is lost. Maybe the dinosaurs live for 1,000 years after the meteor. But if the jig is up, if this is all we've got, baby, I'm glad I cast my lot with you. Maybe all hope is lost. Maybe the dinosaurs live for 1,000 years after the meteor. But if the jig is up, if this is all we've got, baby, I'm glad I cast my lot with you. Maybe all hope is lost. Maybe the dinosaurs live for 1,000 years after the meteor. But if the jig is up, if this is all we've got, baby, I'm glad I cast my lot with you. Hope is lost, dinosaurs, 1,000 years. Jig is up, all we've got.
And that was Dinosaurs by Jessica Smucker. What a unique sound, I must say. Especially with the theremin type sounding guitar, you might have said it was.
Yeah, I kind of forget what all the instruments were that we put in there, but I know we were going for a really kind of synth pop sound. We had, a really great piano player, synthesizer player from Philly who co-produced it with my producer Chad Kinsey, and I really don't remember a lot of the things that we put in it. I just know that we had a certain sound we were going for, and that was like we got it. We
You
nailed
accomplished it, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So tell me, what was that process? Did you produce that during the COVID times, or?
Yeah, because I guess I released it in the summer of 2021. So I think, I was pretty actively in the studio when the pandemic first hit. And I mean, we took a few months off, but then we were pretty able to get back on a schedule by, the summer of 2020. Mostly because our studio space was really big. So we were able to ventilate it and stay pretty far from each other. And then, we would mask and just like take the masks off when I was singing. So it felt like I was very glad of that it was possible to keep going with it. And then by the time we needed to bring in the backup singers and some of the auxiliary people, it felt
Very
safe
simple.
enough that people
Yeah.
were able to come in. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, because we kind of skipped over a lot of your music time
Yeah.
before. What was it like going from a band to solo? What was that process like for you?
In some ways, it was really nice. I was at the beginning of my music career. I was so grateful to have people really great musicians who actually wanted to play with me. I mean, it kind of blew my mind and was validating. And honestly, I probably wouldn't have kept going with music if I didn't feel like there were people who were really, really invested in keeping it going. And I know that, so in my first bands, I wasn't playing keyboard at all. I had a keyboard player. I was just singing. And then I think the keyboard player quit. I mean, he just had too much other stuff going on. And my bandmates were just like, Jessica, I think you could do this, And I was really reluctant. So that's how it started, is that I started playing keyboard with the band. And then, I'm not excited about my piano skills. I feel the limitations a lot. There's so much I wish that I was better at with the piano. I know that I could put in the time, but then it would be time that I'm not spending writing or not spending with my kids. And so that's been, but at the same time, I think that I have really improved as a piano player over the years of doing music. And so by the time, um, and I guess the first time that I played any kind of show solo was when it was in 2010, 2011. I just released my first full-length album, and I entered some songwriting contests. And they were the kind of songwriting contests that you enter it, and then if you're selected for the finals, you have to go to the place where there's like a music festival or something. You go to the place and you have to play the song solo. And so I got into one of those, and it really blew me away and terrified me. And I got there, and I was one of 10 finalists, and everybody else there, and, at least from my perspective, was a much better musician than me. Like, I felt very confident about my songs, but I was
It's
just
not your
like,
abilities.
yeah, I was just like, there's no way I'm going to perform these in a way that really stands out. And then it turned out it was just the opposite, that actually there was something about the very simple way that I just played to accompany myself, and it sort of let the song breathe, and I ended up winning the contest. And so that was a huge confidence boost that made me think, okay, like if I have to perform solo, like it's something I can do, and maybe I can get better at it. So it was a lot of years. And then in recent years, it's really just been because it's more practical. Paying a full band to play with you, making the rehearsals happen. I have done some band shows in the last number of years. Usually it's just my session players from my studio recordings, because we have all the charts, they've played on all the songs. We can put together a show with 2 rehearsals, and I'm the weakest link musically, which is how it should be. So, yeah.
So tell me, when did you start producing? Did you ever start producing like solo albums, like all by yourself? Then no. Okay.
I always have a producer. And that's a relationship.
Sorry, I meant as like piano only.
No.
Okay.
No. The most basic recording I have is a kind of acoustic EP where we had like, piano and bass and then some stringed instruments like banjo and mandolin. And that came out in early 2010. But most of my recordings, at least most of the songs on every album they're treated as like full arrangements. I mean, I do some little like makeshift YouTube videos at home where I'm just playing piano. And there's usually at least one song on every album that if it's not entirely just me and a piano, it's pretty bare bones. Yeah. We'd like to, put that in there, but no, all my recordings are like, I like being in the studio because I have as much time as I need to get everything exactly the way I want it. Like, I think of studio recordings as kind of a historical document. And, I like performing live, but live is, you get what you get. Whereas with the studio recording, I mean, my vocals, I will sing the whole album. I mean, I don't know how many times, many, many times. And sometimes I'll think we have the final vocal take, and then I'll listen back to it and be like, oh, I just want like a little bit more nuance in this place, because you're really trying to get people to feel something. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it feels it's not cheating. It's a whole different art form, to put everything together in a way that the song is like maximizing the emotional impact for the listener.
Yeah, you definitely want to serve the song in your recordings that go out to everybody.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
So tell me, and we can go back to
Sure.
to finding the producer
Mhm.
that best fits you. What was that process like? Did you find it immediately, or did you have to do some shopping?
Yeah. No. It took a little while. I mean, I'd say my first 2 recordings, I always had a good relationship with the producers I was working with. It's a really intense experience. I mean, you don't want to be working with somebody that you're uncomfortable
Of
with.
course.
But I would say, partly I didn't know how to communicate with a producer about, I mean, it takes a while to get to that point where, like, just knowing what you want. And so I was very deferential to what they were doing. And I would say that my early recordings, some of them are hard for me to listen to because I hear all the missed opportunities. I hear all the ways that I would have done things differently. But I would say when I got really serious about, when I wanted to level up my studio recordings, it's funny because I had, a friend that I always went to for, because I knew he would be honest with me. Like, I considered him a musical snob. I actually thought that he would be too bullheaded for me to work with. But I really, really appreciated his opinion. He would come to my shows and I'd be like, "What did you think?" And he'd be like, "You got to do this," or he would always tell me, and I was really hungry to learn. Um, and so I think actually around the same time, the 2 of us independently of each other started thinking like it would actually be good for us to work together. Um, and so that turned out to be the person that I've worked with for the last, for 2 albums, 2.5 albums, and the last decade. So that's Chad Kinsey, and I really appreciated our, our relationship because there's been a lot of push and pull. We don't come from the same musical background. We have a lot of differences in opinion about what sounds good and what doesn't. And there are times when, but we had ground rules. So it was kind of like, if we both have to we have to have sign off from both of us. And if we have an impasse, the first rule is like, you just take a couple days and sit with it. And, you know, almost every time over a decade, every time we had an impasse, which wasn't that many times, one of us would come around first. And I've just felt really good about that relationship. Now, this album that we've been working on has gotten interrupted because he's had some pretty major health issues, and we were also kind of reaching a point 3 albums in, even though like I think our working relationship has been very special to both of us. You do reach a point where
Gotta move on.
it's and it's hard. It's hard to admit when that's where you are, and I've, it's something that I really was really wrestling with a lot. And then he got sick. And so it sort of forced my hand in a way that, in some ways I've been making the most of it. So now I have a new person in Philadelphia that I'm finishing the album with. And he's wonderful. He's somebody that I think I actually have maybe more of a natural, like, shared musical repertoire with. I feel like he gets the way that I like to communicate about music. But it's somebody new after 10 years. So there's a lot of sort of treading carefully and trying to figure out, like, I think right now we're in the stage where we're just sort of getting oriented and figuring out, like, okay, what's our path forward?
Yeah, that's a really great realization to have, because a lot of people don't realize that, hey, like for example, a teacher can only teach you so much before you have to go to a different teacher.
Right.
You can only work with a producer for so long before you have to move on and say, okay, this was great. This is great what we did. We got to move on. It's same thing for your drummers. I know some people like phase out. It's like, okay, this is not what I can't do this anymore. We had a great run. I hope it's not like it's not nothing bad. It's like, okay, I wish the best for you,
Right.
but we got to go.
Yeah.
and move on, and that's fine.
And it can be really difficult. It can be really difficult when it's somebody that you love working with or that is a good friend. I mean, I always kind of laugh at this because I consider myself like really nice. I don't like the idea of like firing somebody.
Right.
But I've had everybody I've had to fire, and I put it in quotes because it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like, okay, this
Separation.
isn't, but everybody that I've had that experience with, I'm still really good friends with.
Mhm.
I mean, there's some of my best friends, and it becomes sort of a running joke, like, oh yeah, that time you fired me. And I think that's how it should be, because it doesn't have to be, you don't have to blow things up to acknowledge that like the relationship that you were working on needs to take a different path.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that later on they can't come back in.
Right.
So it doesn't. You don't have to blow up a relationship just because you realize for the both of you that it's not a good way forward.
Right.
There's nothing inherently wrong. It's just that sometimes we need to move beyond what we've been doing.
Yeah.
And you just need to separate paths, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I think that, one of the things that working more as a solo artist has really given me a lot of clarity about, what I want, what I don't want, what's missing when I perform solo, who are the people that I want to work with. And, that's been really nice. I'm in the middle of starting a new band, and, I feel really nervous about it because it's been such a long time since I had like, other people who were invested at the same level in things going forward. And I'm not a great band leader. Like I like to have somebody else who's kind of driving things forward. So I've been not reluctant, but I've been slow in like letting the momentum build with the new band because I'm really excited about the people I'm playing with, but I need it's so much simpler when I play by myself and all of the nuances of the relationship and keeping everybody happy it's a very socially exhausting job. And so that's the part as I enter this new project I'm wary of, but I think that I've chosen the right people to work with. That's going to be like minimal social drama. Fingers crossed.
I want to talk a little bit more about that, but I want to hit another song of yours.
Yes, please.
Let's do The Sea. Tell me about that one.
So The Sea actually has maybe a similar theme to Dinosaurs in that I wrote it after I had my first child. Maybe I was pregnant with my second child, and it was really the first time in my life that I had I had people in my life that mattered on this whole other level, where like it put at the front of my mind the temporariness of everything in life. And I wanted it to be kind of a love song for my family and kind of an acknowledgement that like, here's what we get. Like we get to love each other until we're not here anymore. And there's nothing we can do about that. And so, the idea of the ocean as this, beautiful body of water that is your friend and your enemy at the same time. And it feels like the perfect, I mean, maybe it's a cliche, but it's really the perfect metaphor for what love is, because it's so exciting and draws you in, and yet it's extremely dangerous and will destroy you. And so that's sort of the context of The Sea, is like, how do I engage with you every day? How do I love you so hard every day, knowing that our days together are limited? Yeah.
Let's take a listen to The Sea.
I have listened for God in the ear of a shell. I have wrestled the tides and argued against the groundswell. Walking with the deep blue, I don't wanna lose you. This is me facing my fear. Even if we drown, I'm happy that I found you here. I'm yours today. Hold me while the sky is full. Tomorrow you will drift away. Sure as the moon shimmers and fades. There is only one way to survive a riptide. Close your eyes and lean back and take the sea for a ride. When I think of dying, there's an ocean lying under us, pickled and blue. Spread out like a highway, baby, you go my way or I'm coming with you. I'm yours today. Hold me while the sky is full. Tomorrow you will drift away. Sure as the moon shimmers and fades. I'm yours today. Hold me while the sky is full. Tomorrow you will drift away. Sure as the moon shimmers and fades. As I listen for God in the ear of this shell, I don't know much, but I know that I've loved you well.
And that was The Sea by Jessica Smucker. So I'm very curious. You're coming out of the COVID era, and we're getting back into the swing of things musically. What has it been like? You mentioned bringing together a band, and you're having an upcoming project as well.
Yes.
That must be a lot.
It is a lot. So for me, it wasn't just the pandemic for those couple of years. It was that I had little kids.
Right.
So, when my kids are 6 and 8 now, when they were very little, I intended to be performing more, but I just found that it was too hard. It was too hard for me to feel like I could do a good quality performance. So for the last, I don't know, until last year, the previous 3 to 4 years, I was mostly, I would do a show when asked, but I wasn't really actively out there trying to perform. And then the pandemic happened, and it was, honestly, it was kind of a relief. I put out an album in the fall of 2020, and I sort of love that I didn't have to do any shows to support it because I didn't know if I'd be able to. Like, I just, but it was also, I would say, about a year and a half ago, I started feeling like, okay, my kids are old enough. Like, it feels like I can start breaking in again. And then sort of unexpectedly, I found that trying to break back in at the same time as everybody else who was breaking back in after the pandemic, it was kind of great. Like, I didn't get a lot of questions about like, well, where have you been? What have you been doing? It was just kind of like, duh, everybody's
Yeah.
So I have found it, that the timing has been really, really great for me. So a couple things that I've been doing to try to reinvigorate my performance career. I mean, one is that I'm going to conferences like Folk Alliance, which is a really great way to connect with other artists and industry people.
Where's that at?
So there's like Folk Alliance International, which happens somewhere different every 3 years. It's in Kansas City right now. But then I go to the regional one. So Northeast Regional Folk Alliance, NERFA, is in Asbury Park, New Jersey. And it's a great way to connect with other artists who are performing in the Northeast. And I've been focusing more on, not that I don't want to talk to industry people. It's just that like I've done a lot of like, spending money, hiring people to do this and that for me. And and some of that has been really helpful and successful. And some of it has felt like, okay, I paid too much for that. But I really want to connect with other artists who are doing the same thing as me, because we're the ones who can actually like really collaborate with each other, book shows together. So about a year ago, I started thinking about like, how can I set up a situation where there's some reciprocity between me and the artist friends that I've met in other regions, people that I, met 10 years ago, or new people that I encounter. And what I really wanted to do was start a series that, where I could bring friends from out of town or local artists and do, songwriters in the round, where we're all on stage together at the same time. And we do a show where our songs are interacting with each other. And so I approached Zoetropolis about it because I really love that room, and I thought that it would be the right space for it. I had a few friends who were like, "Oh, you sure you don't want to do it in like, more of a like a smaller room, or like in the basement at Telus or whatever." And there were other good options, but I was like, "No, I want it to be on like this beautiful stage that has amazing sound, and
very comfortable seating.
comfortable seating, so that people can really like just sit back and enjoy an evening of like very intimate storytelling and music, and just have it be a different kind of concert than people I think around here are really used to seeing." And I was so grateful that Zoetropolis they were receptive to it right away. They're like, "Yeah, let's try it." And so we've done 3 shows so far. In September, we had Brad Yoder and Mirabelle Skipworth, who came from Pittsburgh. And then in December, we had Abby Gardner and Mark Douglas Berardo, who came from the Northeast. And in February, and you were at that show, we had Mike Ryan from Virginia and Andrew Pauls, who's local. These have been really, really wonderful musical experiences for me. It's my favorite way to perform. I love playing my songs in relationship with other artists. I love when there are impromptu collaborations where people are singing and playing on each other's music. And I love that kind of audience that's just like sitting, like a listening room audience that's really there to absorb it. So in April, we're in April now, the end of this month, April 30th. I'm probably the most excited about this show than I have been, and I've been pretty excited about all of them. But I'm having Rachel Sage, who's based in New York, and Katie Dahl, who's from Wisconsin. They are 2 women that I actually played in the round with in a showcase at NERFA in Asbury Park last November. That's when I met them, and we really hit it off. And I was a little bit surprised that I was able to get them to come and play here, mostly because, Katie lives in the Midwest and doesn't come east very often, but she just happened to be touring through the area during a time I had a date free. And Rachel is, a pretty big name in New York City, and has a very large following, and is a much more established artist than the rest of us. And she's also a very, very kind and gracious person, a phenomenal performer. And seems very happy to be coming here. So that's a show that I hope people will come out to and, show them some of our Lancaster love.
And when does that start on that Sunday?
So it's April 30th. Doors at 6:30, showtime at 7. It will be over by 9. So, we try to get people home at a decent time on a school night.
Right. So you're running all of these things. I want to definitely talk about the balance because you're a mother to 2 kids. You're working and you do the music at all at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I quit my day job a year ago, and that was great, except that now I don't have money to put into my music. I mean, I have support, but but I quit my day job because I was split. I was stretched too thin, and my family wasn't getting what they needed from me, and my creativity wasn't getting what it, and I just, I had this moment where, I'm middle-aged, I'm in my mid-40s, and like, if I don't do this now, when am I going to do it? So we're finding a way to make that work, the financial piece of it work with our family. Although, part of me wanting to perform again is that, like, I would like to be able to close the circle and at least be breaking even on, what I'm doing musically, which is shockingly hard to do. If you know the inside of the music industry at all, just take my word for it that many of the people out there that you see looking very successful, they are, but also they're not making their living on it.
They're successful in their music, not successful in their wallet.
Yeah. Some of them are.
Some of them are, yes.
If you really, the way to do that is you get lucky and you get like a TV placement or something like that. But
Right.
it's really hard. Or you're touring, like 300 days a year.
Yeah, you're doing 200 shows, 300 shows, yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a challenge. I have, especially as I get back into traveling to do music again, because I was out and I played the Tucson Folk Festival last month and or earlier this month actually, and that was a week in Tucson. I'm going to be in Montana later this summer for a songwriting contest finals. And it's money to get there, it's money to stay there. I'm lucky that both of those places I had family to stay with, but it's also time away from my kids, and they're very good about. I mean, they're used to it now, but it's hard. And then trying to do it in a way that feels fair to everybody. Because my kids' needs, my partner working, a full-time job supporting all of us, and my creative life, all of those things, like, they need what they need, and it's not easy.
No. So and this kind of ties into the last song we're going to play, Stones to Throw. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I found that I've been writing a lot of songs about like the middle part of love. And I noticed that a lot of the love songs that you hear are, happy, loving songs about the early stages of love, very romantic songs, or these sort of like doomsday songs about the end of love. And I feel like I'm sort of carving out this niche for myself in this sort of the middle part of love, where, like, you're probably not leaving. It's not awesome. It has its moments. It has its beautiful moments, and probably more of the moments are a grind, or they're lonely, or I need something from my partner that I can't ask for. Or I realize that my entire personality is unfair to my partner, or whatever it is. And so Stones to Throw is a song that I wrote in a moment where I was just really feeling that, like, and I was feeling some of the pressure of, like, it was probably around the time that I was getting ready to quit my job that I wrote this song, because it was like I was saying goodbye to something I really loved, because I did really love the job. And I felt so much ambiguity about the future. But I knew that what I really wanted was to just like sit outside under the moon with my partner, who at the moment didn't really want to have that much to do with me. So, everybody who's been in a marriage or a long-term relationship understands like that these moments exist, and they can be very painful. And they're just painful in moments. Like it doesn't have
It's
to
not
be
the
this.
picture.
It's not a defining moment. It's just a moment. Yeah.
So this is Stones to Throw by Jessica Smucker.
Love is like the moon today, bumpy, bright, and far away. I see you there, but I still feel alone. You're up there watching over me, but I need you down here with me. So let the sky grow dark and take me home. When you turn away, I feel the blow. Is there a piece of me that you don't wanna know? I can't decide which stones to throw, when to fight and when it's time for letting go. Overgrown with brush and weeds, I'm losing you to entropy. Dishes piled high and I can't find your eyes. If you're waiting till the house is clean to hold my hands and look at me, then we might just as well let our love die. When you turn away, I feel the blow. Is there a piece of me that you don't wanna know? I can't decide which stones to throw, when to fight and when it's time for letting go. Time heals every hurt, they say, but there's no time for us today. We've got kids to mind and bills to pay. I'm gonna sing the kids a lullaby, pour myself a glass of wine, and wait for you to meet me in the moonshine. Don't turn away, I need you to know there's a piece of me that I'm afraid to show. My hands are tied, no stones to throw. Am I fighting you? Am I letting go?
And that was Stones to Throw by Jessica Smucker. Jessica, where can people find you at?
JessicaSmucker.com. That has all of my, it has links to all of my socials and everything. But I'm on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. I would love if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's where I post my kind of like home studio recordings. If I'm just working on something, that's where you'll find my solo piano versions of songs, and my other music videos too. But that's a good start for where you can find me.
Are some of the stuff you have upcoming? You have the April 30th show of Songwriters in a Raw.
Yes. So Songwriters in the Raw on April 30th at Zootropolis, and tickets for that are on sale now. And then the following Friday, May 5th, I'm going to have my friend Mark Douglas Berardo, who played Songwriters in the Raw series in December with me. He's going to be doing a house concert with me in downtown Lancaster. And that's a really cool new series that people should check out. if you go to, it's called DLZ House, and I think it's, if you go to Downtown Lank Zine on Instagram, that's a good way to follow that. I also have info about the show on my website. Um, and then I don't have a lot else booked locally for a while. I'll be in Montana in June. But I'm looking at right now booking some band shows in maybe September and October. And then there'll be 3 more shows in the Songwriters in the Raw series later this year, August 19th, which is a Saturday. And then we have October 15th, and we have a special Christmas show on December 10th.
Nice. And if you want more information about that, it will surely be on jessicasmucker.com.
Yes.
So one of the last questions, we're kind of rounding out our time here, but one of the questions I'd like to ask all of my guests is, what is one of the worst or funniest things that's ever happened to you on stage?
So this goes back to, I think, around 2012. It was winter. I had a show in this church basement in New Hampshire. There was a snowstorm. I was driving from Chicago area, I think. I got caught in traffic. I was running late. And I didn't, at the time, I don't even know if I had a cell phone number. I mean, I know I had a cell phone, but it was not easy to get a hold of the people to let them know I was running late. And on the way there, on the drive there, I was having a conversation on the phone with my boyfriend at the time, and we were in the middle of breaking up.
Oh, no.
And so I get to the gig. I'm like, I get there maybe half an hour before showtime. We haven't set anything up. You know, it's just like kind of a disaster. I'm wearing whatever I was wearing, but it was my travel clothing. Like I just didn't have time to do any of the things that I would have normally done to get ready for a show. And then in the middle of a song, while performing, I started crying, like crying. Because I was sad about my, I was a mess, which happens sometimes. And, you know, you write a song that's sad, and then you never know when it's actually going to make you cry on stage. It's weird. And then after the show, this woman came up to talk to me, and she waited in line behind somebody else. And I was like, oh, this woman's very interested in talking. You know, I had a good sense of like, oh, what's she going to say to me? And what she said to me was, you know, you're much more sophisticated than the clothes you wear. And I just remember the woman that I was co-billing with was talking to another person like across the room from me behind this woman, and I saw her turn to me and just make this face like like it was just funny. And honestly, it was good advice. I mean, you know, if that had been what I had chosen to look like, and it was just one of those moments where like, okay, lady, but did you see me crying in the show? Like maybe I'm not having the best night. Like maybe I don't want to talk about my wardrobe today. So that was, I thought, one of the funnier total nightmares. Yeah.
You know, what a drive to Chicago to New Hampshire.
No, I'm sorry, not Chicago. It was I was coming from Boston. That makes more sense. That was a slip.
I was gonna say that's a long drive.
It was Boston.
Well, if you want to find out more about Jessica Smucker, please go over to jessicasmucker.com. If you want to know about more about me, what I do, that my name is Corey Rosen. I run the Story Podcast, and you can find all about me and the stuff we do at CoreyRosenProductions.com. That's CORYROSEN Productions.com. We have a number of things coming up, including a few shows. This Friday, we're having Javier from the Heads or Tails Experience. That is a great funk man out of the area that I'm really excited to talk to. Very eccentric people. And this Sunday, we're having our first ever little award show. It's almost an anniversary of the Story Podcast. We just hit a year. April 15th would be 1 year of the Story Podcast. Thank you very much. And we're kind of celebrating that, and we're celebrating all the artists that have come on the show by giving them little awards that show that, you know, every artist needs their accolades, right? To help establish them more and get them more gravitas, I would say. And so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be holding a little shindig where a lot of the artists from the past year are going to be performing. They're going to be showcasing their new music, and we're going to be having a 1 hour jam session at the end. There will be food, drinks, etc. all there. So be sure to come out. That starts at 4 o'clock this Sunday over at the Switchboard Studios, which is the art space above Columbia Kettleworks in Columbia. So I would love to see you there. This Monday, we're having Joe Castro, a old rockabilly. Not he's not old, but it's a style of rockabilly band, and I'm really excited to talk to him about the way he's doing rockabilly nowadays. And then the next Thursday, we're having LBC's own Matt Wheeler come on the show, and I'm really excited to talk about him and his music career. Otherwise, apart from that, we are starting our songwriter studio where we're grabbing 3 or 4 other artists in the area, and we're locking them down and making them write a song within an hour, ready to. The goal is to have a song ready to go to a studio to produce and release within an hour. And so that's going to be a really cool show. There's a lot of people signed up for that, and I would love to have you guys on if you are a singer songwriter or a instrumentalist as well. Otherwise, we're ramping up our single reviews and our album reviews, where we gather singles and albums from the artists in the area, and we grab another artist from the area. We sit down, review them, talk about them, what we like, what we don't like. Just a little bit of constructive criticism, and it's a great way for new artists to get some feedback on the music and to get some exposure as well. If you want to sign up for that or submit your music, you can do that at QuarryRosenProductions.com. With all that said, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.